Well, it is a work about foreign direct investment and local development. It is some preliminary results from this work and study, which is by me, Luca Bortolotti, and Donatella Saccone, all of us from the Turin Center on Emerging Economies. Well, my colleagues are here. Also, Donatella is online, so probably they can also come in at any time to integrate or answer questions or whatever. And it's a special analysis in the sense that we try to take advantage of the availability now of data at a very good level of detail, of geographic detail, from satellite remote sensing, observation, and GIS systems, to reassess, in a sense, because we took these notions from the global value chain literature. Some of you are very familiar with this literature, probably can contribute. And the idea of this microcube, basically we take activities and tasks within value chains, and some activities are associated, tasks are associated with higher value and higher development outcomes, better development outcomes. Then what we look at is it also true at the local level? What happens when we look at this relationship at the very local level by means of those GIS data? This is the idea, and this is the outline of the presentation. And for the literature, I will go very, there's only few basic notions. The notion of the smile cube basically is about production. I mean, if we take in the value chain and the x-axis, and production, fabrication activities are in the middle, then we have pre-production, post-production activities, where they are associated with higher. If on the y-axis we have the value, yes, generally then they are associated with more higher value. This is the idea, and countries is also very clearly presented in a presentation before mine by Professor Radlow. Try to upgrade in the value chain to go toward those kind of tasks, which are intangible intensive stages of the value chain, associated with the amount of value that economies hosting those activities actually manage to capture, while production functions can capture less. And this is explained by more competition, for example, in the labor-intensive fabrication activities that allow economies to capture less value, or the strategic control of the value chain is by the firms which own strategic intangible assets. Then the ownership of these assets allow them to control the value chain, and those firms are located in high-income countries sometimes. And we focus on non-OECD countries. Then we look at developing countries. Most of these studies which found this relationship, which can be sketched by the idea of the smile curve, is cross-country literature, while we go at a more detailed level. We do so mostly by using these nylide emissions as a proxy for gross domestic product. It was found to be a good proxy for GDP at the subnational level for countries which lack, of course, good statistics at the local level, as most developing countries as it is the case for most developing countries. And then we look at this relationship between tasks and activities in the value chain and development. We look at it through FDI. We use this FDI markets database by the Financial Times Limited. The database registers cross-border bilateral greenfield investments, updates the information regularly. We took all the FDI in non-OECD countries, and of course there is a lot of information for each FDI in which the activity tasks were of the FDI. Also, there is the target location in terms of region, and in most cases even the exact town and or city. Then we managed to georeference them. That is through a stata command that is with geocode or open cage geo. Then we cross-check and validate the results. We associated to each and every investment a couple of geographic coordinates in order to represent it on a map. Then, when it comes to classification of FDI, this FDI markets database provides a classification of all the FDIs by activities, and here you can see all the categories and how we grouped them. Because there were too many, we came up with 7 groups by aggregating them. There is extraction, we left it alone, and manufacturing. Also, we grouped the construction and electricity together, kind of infrastructural. And then we took commerce. It is many activities, like logistic distribution, transportation, okay, retail, sales, marketing. Then intangible is about the high value, knowledge intensive part of the value chain, which includes headquarters, research and development, ICT. Then there is business service. We left it alone because, as you will see in the next slide, there are so many, because this was also a criteria for grouping, while the other is kind of residual category, residual group, not that big, and it's mainly in the services, but not sure about the how knowledge intensive and how to interpret it. Yes, as anticipated, here you can see each year in the state study period, which is from 2004 to 2019, the 7 groups we just went through and just introduced, and you see the number of FDI. You can see that manufacturing is an important group, commerce as well, and business services, while extraction is almost negligible, I would say, and other is not such a big group. And then we go to the GIS part of the story. We said it is a spatial analysis, and I apologize with those who might be already familiar with the GIS systems and whatever, but sometimes I feel it's worth giving some background about this kind of data analysis, because it's not yet really common in economic papers. When we say it is a special analysis, at the end, our unit of observation is administrative level 2. That means the second level of division of a country. If the nation is administrative level 0, then Regione, for example, in Italy is administrative level 1 and Provincia is administrative level 2, which is quite a high level of detail. Some countries, they don't use the administrative level 2, they only have administrative level 1. In those cases, we took administrative level 1, but for most cases, it is 2, and we came up with more than 32,000 administrative units and some 200,000 observations. Okay. Then for each region, administrative level 2, we counted the FDI in each group of activity. Then and this comes from the FDI markup database. The other data come from raster images that are kind of can come from remote sensing satellite or other, but are kinds of grids covering the planet, and we overlap by means of geographical coordinates, and we have a grid where each cell in the grid is 1 kilometer, then we have 1 square kilometer dimension, and each cell also has a figure that brings the data. For example, with, this could be population density, number of population in each 1 kilometer cell, then it is population density for each and every cell. And we also have an highlight, the very same idea. And all the dependent variable and the control variables come from raster image like this. What we do, we basically take an average over the region, and this is the figure we associate to region I for each variable and year, because for every year we have a different image, of course. And at the end we have 3 variables. One is our dependent variable, is light growth, LG. That is nightlight growth, natural logarithm of the growth in nightlight emission from T-1 to T. And this is the dependent variable. Then we have 2 controls. One is light standard deviation at LSD, maybe, that is the standard deviation of nightlight emission within the region, which we interpret somehow as a proxy of spatial inequality, because it tells us which is the variability of light within the administrative unit, plus we take population density. All of them IT for region, administrative unit I in time T. And then, of course, we have the main explanatory variable, which is FDI from FDI markets database. In terms of methodology, back to econometric, more conventional methodological issues, we have an issue with reverse causality, because, okay, we think that FDI have an effect on economic growth, which we are trying to measure, but the other way around, economic growth can attract FDI. And this is something that we do not manage to, I mean, there is no quick fix solution, and we don't claim strong causality so far. We have some devices to mitigate concerns, that, like we'll have the main explanatory variable FDI is it's taken in T-1. We have a control group. We include in the sample all the regions, regardless of receiving FDI or not, and most didn't. And this avoid the selection bias in our sample. And we also use multi-level fixed effect estimator with fixed effects for the region, for each administrative unit level 2, fixed effect for the region I, and also for time and country. And this allows us to control for time invariant features of the region, and of course for the effect of time and country, which is important, particularly if you consider that this with this GIS data, we don't have so many variables available. We can't add many controls, but this fixed effect compensate, in a sense, and limit also limited variable bias. The equation is here with the 7 groups of FDI and then the other controls which I already introduced, population density and the standard deviation of lights. FDI is a lagged, and light growth over time from t-1 to t is the dependent variable. Okay, I think we can go to results. Yeah. First, we tried with all the FDI together without detailing into groups by task. And we have 3 specifications, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. Again, simply baseline model, then with also controlling for population density, and here we also control for the standard deviation of light. And when we consider all the FDI together, we don't find significance. But when we go and detail by tasks, we find orange is, I marked with orange the ones, the coefficients which are significant, because sometimes it's not easy to read everything. And manufacturing is always highly significant, positive coefficient. Commerce has negative significant coefficients. Then we have less significant positive coefficients with extraction and business services. When it comes to controls, we find negative significant coefficients for both population density and, say, spatial inequality. More inequality, less growth. When we divide the sample, because here we have, let me go back. Yes, here we have 31,000 units, and we can, then we divided the sample by continent, Africa, Asia, Europe, and Latin America, Caribbean. We find that all results are confirmed for Asia and Latin America, Caribbean. Manufacturing strongly positive significant, means it manufacturing activity, production activities are positively associated with growth and development. Commerce, negative significant. And then again, we find something about the business services and something about construction and electricity. Africa seems to be kind of a special story with extraction, positive significant, and also this group other. We have performed some robustness tests. First with alternative lag structure, means that instead of taking FDI in t-1, we took t-1, t-3, t-2, and t-3 altogether. The idea is that maybe the FDI have effect over a longer time period than from 1 year to the next. Then we tried in US, taking, instead of counting, simply counting the FDI, we took their value in US dollar, which of course would be a first option in principle. But the problem we see with US dollar is that in the FDI market database, we have reliable figures for the number of FDIs, but when it comes to their value, most of the data comes from estimates, which are not usually considered to be reliable. Then usually they're only considered as robustness tests, not as main models. because of reliability. Then try to remove, okay, because I forgot mentioning something in the last, Europe, we don't find anything significant in Europe, which is also quite interesting. Try to remove high-income economies because the original sample was non-OECD countries, but non-OECD countries also include some high-income economies, particularly in the European area. And then also there is this robustness test. All results are confirmed. Here is the alternative leg structure for these ones. Here it is in US dollars, and this is with excluding high-income countries. And manufacturing is always confirmed, and also commerce is the negative sign of commerce is almost always confirmed. Then, how can we interpret these results? No, let us summarize them first. For fabrication activities, there is the production part of the value chain. We find positive association of manufacturing FDI with development. Also some association of extractive FDI, but it was an African story because it was highly significant in Africa and then only weakly significant in the sample as a whole. Logistic distribution, retail, sales, marketing and support. We find negative association of these commercial activities with development. And here the explanation might be kind of crowding out effect of imports from abroad on local production. This could be an explanation if those commerce FDIs are mostly related with imports and competition from country producing cheaper goods. This could be the case, and then it would depress, it would discourage local production and local development, structural change in the receiving region. Then, when it comes to intangible intensive activities, which are the ones expected to give higher returns, and that countries should climb up the value chains, they do not seem to be associated with development. We never find significance in their case. Interpretation of these results, what we are trying to figure out is, well, most literature is cross-country, and they look at impacts and returns, average returns in the country. But maybe those returns, those impacts are concentrated in few areas, like capital cities, important cities, and maybe even few groups, the ones which own skills and knowledge that we're talking about. Well, what if when we look at the local level, the story maybe is different? The could change maybe production activities, and the fabrication part of the story plays a bigger role than expected at the local level, with a question mark, because as I said, it's still preliminary results, and I would say also preliminary interpretation. Then your contribution is very welcome. Limitations. Reverse causality I mentioned already. We have an issue here, probably. Would be nice to add more controls. We have the limitation of georeferenced data, which are available only for some variable, particularly over time, because we need an image for each and every year we consider. And then an alternative classification of FDI. We tried the provisional grouping, those 7 groups, but we could try with alternative classifications and estimates for coefficients. This is something very easy, but we didn't try yet to see what means. Then one additional FDI, which is its impact on growth. Then just to to have a quantitative idea of the meaning of the coefficients. No, I finished.